Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and I want to talk about something very personal for me today, and that is the MMORPG genre. It is easily the genre of game that I've played the longest, and also the most consistently. I started way back in the day, like when I was like 8 or 9 years old, somewhere around there, on RuneScape. And I'm talking old school RuneScape before they called it old school RuneScape. Then later on, I moved on to World of Warcraft when I was just entering middle school. And then as I was just entering college, I moved on to Final Fantasy XIV, which is still my primary MMO to this day. But I found the amount of time that I dedicate to playing MMOs to have drastically reduced compared to those earlier years. And I want to talk about why, because I don't think I'm alone on this issue, and I think there's a few variables at play when it comes to MMO specifically, especially the case of the modern MMO, that can make this whole conversation really murky. Because I feel as if MMOs have kind of lost their aura. And I want to preface what I'm about to say with the following. I am only speaking for myself. I am not saying that this applies to everyone, but I also don't think I'm alone on this particular issue. I am someone who never rated high-end. I am never someone who did high-end PvP. I dipped my toe into these kinds of things occasionally, but it never particularly stuck. The reason I loved MMOs so much was I loved being in this interconnected world with a bunch of other people. I loved that sense of community. I loved the sense of incremental progression with my character, getting them more and more powerful or more and more gear, raising various reputations. I loved the stories going on. Heck, I read a book on RuneScape lore when I was a kid. Yeah, I was that kind of guy. It was the Falador book, for those who want to know. Don't remember what the hell happens in it. I remember enjoying it, though. When it comes to World of Warcraft lore, though, I was obsessed. I even got into Warcraft 3 because of it. I read a lot of the novels. I remember getting Tides of Darkness before I went on a vacation with my family and having the book done by the time I got back. It was one of the fastest reads I ever had for a book. I was just that enthralled with it. Double entendre for the Warcraft lore nerds out there. And the same can be kind of said for Final Fantasy XIV. I love that game to death. And I love the story there. I've ranked it as my favorite story in any game ever. And while I don't play Warcraft or World of Warcraft all that much nowadays, I do try and keep up with the community and keep up with what's going on there to some degree. And I think 2024 could easily be known as the year of the MMO because we've had a lot of big names and big things happen. We've had the release of Throne and Liberty, we've had the War Within, the latest expansion to World of Warcraft, kickstarting the World Soul Saga, we've had Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail also come out, basically being step one on this new giant arc in Saga after the Hydaelyn Zodiac arc wrapped up with 6.0 Endwalker. The MMO scene was hot, there was a lot to do, there was a lot to talk about, and I'm in the final months of 2024 being like, yeah, it was alright. Throne and Liberty looked interesting. I haven't looked into it all that much, but the combat didn't particularly appeal to me, which is a massive thing for MMOs. And the big thing that's always bounced me off of trying a lot of other MMOs, I tried Guild Wars 2, I've tried Star Wars The Old Republic, but the gameplay just wasn't there for me. Hitting my keys on my keyboard just wasn't as satisfying as it was in games like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV. But let's go back to the interconnected world for a moment here, because this is where I feel that MMOs have really dropped the ball. And I think what really sparked me talking about this was watching the latest Preach Gaming video, basically on his thoughts after Season 1 of The War Within. Because I was contemplating going back to World of Warcraft to try out The War Within, I could just never be asked. And I'm like, why though? I tried Mr. Pandaria Remix. Why do I not have this desire to go back and try The War Within? And I think I zoned in on it. Because I don't even play that much Final Fantasy XIV outside of major releases. Or like patch releases and stuff like that. I don't grind raids, I don't grind ultimates or anything like that. There's a few reasons why. MMOs used to have the chokehold on the idea of the interconnected world where you get incremental progression. They were in a lot of ways the definitive live service that wasn't just a multiplayer shooter or something akin. They were these giant breathing worlds that you and a whole bunch of other people could experience together and play through various bits of content together. But for me, the desire to play with other people has kind of eroded over the last few years. And also, other games are giving me that sense of incremental progression in an ever-living, ever-breathing world, and it's no longer just MMORPGs that provide that entertainment for me. We have these giant-scale RPGs that can go for hundreds of hours if you want, games like Elden Ring. I know a lot of people laugh at games like gacha games, but while it is easy to look at the monetization potential and how much money you can drop into these games, and yeah, I'm not going to celebrate gacha in the best of days, but I will also say that the creme de la creme, or whatever, the best of the best in those games, you can play free-to-play. You straight up can. I play a couple free-to-play. Absolutely possible. Possibly, and potentially, I enjoy them free-to-play, because I still get that incremental progression. I feel my account getting better and better over time, but I'm also in this living, breathing world that's evolving, that's changing. Gives me this storyline to care about, to some degree. Also, as I'm getting older, I'm experimenting and trying other games in other genres. So any desire that I had to play these games simply for the boss fights, I'm finding that joy out of other genres that don't require me to schedule time weekly to play with a bunch of other people that may or may not wipe. If I die, I want to at least know it was my fault, not someone else's. Games like Souls-likes, games like Monster Hunter that I want to dive into. Like, these are games I can play to get that boss rush experience. Heck, Black Myth Wukong. Games where I can play to have these cool, memorable boss fights that are grandiose and epic, where I don't feel the need to go out, search for a guild or a group to play with, and then be on their time. And like, this is a personal thing for me. I just don't like scheduling my entertainment. I like having the feeling of, oh, I feel like playing now, because I have some free time. Let me play this, or this, or this. And I know the easiest way to kill my interest in something is for it to be scheduled, and for me, at that point in time, not want to do it. And I can't particularly blame MMOs for this issue. They are inherently a cooperative experience. Like, that's what the MMO stands for, massively multiplayer online. But I think when a lot of people bring up the definition of an MMORPG in the defense of multiplayer content, you forget the word massively. And I think one issue I'm starting to find with a lot of MMOs, namely the ones I care about, which I say a lot before, but it's really a few, games like World of Warcraft, games like Final Fantasy XIV, because those are the ones I have the most recent experience with, so those are going to be the ones I'm going to talk about personally. They focus in on two small things, and a lot of the times it feels like, what are we doing if it's not high-end PvE or high-end PvP? Like, if I'm not funneling myself into one of those two categories, what are we doing here? When it comes to World of Warcraft, the entire endgame is basically constructed to funnel you into go do raids, go do Mythic Plus, or go do high-end PvP. And I guess with the War Within, we now also have delves, which I'm appreciative of the idea that they're at least trying something new in that regard. And to go back to what I'm saying, you can do that content solo. That's cool, but I only like grinding something for a certain period of time and then it just gets dull and I just want to play something different or have some new content to play, and the patch cadence for an MMO doesn't really align with that anymore. When it comes to a gacha game, it's basically just wait a few weeks and then Bob's your uncle. You at least get something to do, and it won't be too time-intensive, so you can still play a bunch of other games that pique your interest and curiosity. When it comes to World of Warcraft, the concept of Mythic Plus is such an off-putting idea. I never liked the idea of Mythic Plus. The problem is, over the years, we saw the decline of World of Warcraft in terms of its overall quality. Hopefully, we're on a U-turn for that, and it'll start to go up and up and up from here. But when you're basically actively siphoning off your core audience for years and years and years, like World of Warcraft was doing, are we really surprised that the people that do remain are those with that content specifically appeals to them? So of course there's going to be a lot of people in the World of Warcraft community in the modern day that love Mythic Plus because those are the people that would end up remaining in an ecosystem that tries to actively funnel you into that piece of content or into high-end raiding or into high-end PvP. There's nothing wrong with that. People like what they like at the end of the day, right? It's a freaking video game. But I'm just saying, let's not be surprised or act as if that's not an effect that's going on here. There's a whole lot of other issues you can bring up with World of Warcraft when it comes to like add-on reliance or just how hyper-competitive certain pieces of content can be, even when maybe the difficulty doesn't rely on it or like call for that. And then you cut on over to Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm looking to the future with that game, I'm like, okay, Dawntrail will end up with a lot of content. They're bringing back a lot of mainstays from previous expansions that people liked or enjoyed or just simply want back. There's going to be a lot in the endgame loop for Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail, but, funnily enough, it's not there yet. So all that's kind of there right now is, we got raiding, you do some extremes, about it, unless you really want to do glamour like RP, and I'm not an RPer personally. Again, nothing wrong, it's just, I'm finding my interest in constantly going to an MMORPG in my free time or my downtime, and just brain rotting myself there. I'm not finding the desire to do that anymore. I like that more casual or mid-core content that can drop in with a bunch of people at a time and sink a bunch of hours. Things like Thunder Isle or Timeless Isle back in Mists of Pandaria, things like Bosnia in Final Fantasy XIV. Dawntrail will have content like that, but probably not to like 7.2 or like 7.3 or something like that. That's like 8 months after launch. Like, that is a long period of time before the non-high-end content really comes into play here. Like, do I want to grind the same 4 fights every week for 8 months? No. Like, it's as simple as that. I don't want to do that. Do I want to grind the same 2 dungeons every day for an expert roulette? No. I like difficulty in games. I will gladly play a game like Elden Ring, or a game like Bloodborne, or a game like Dark Souls, or a game like Black Myth Wukong, or a game like Halo on Legendary. My default for a lot of games is to hit the hard mode. May frustrate me from time to time, but I end up enjoying the difficulty. And I think one of the main reasons I've always averted myself away from the higher end content when it comes to games like World of Warcraft, the games like Final Fantasy XIV, especially recently, it's because I know that I'm going to run into the same issue, where it's like, okay, progress will probably be fun for a period of time, but then I'm going to come across this threshold where we beat the boss, we beat the fight, there's nothing left to learn, and then, cool guys, let's grind this out every week. And it's an idea that is so wholly off-putting to me, I just don't end up doing it to begin with. We also live in a time where there's too many good games that come out. I'm like, do I want to dedicate all of this time that I would have to dedicate to grinding for very incremental upgrades? Do I want to dedicate all my time to this? Or do I want to dedicate that same amount of time to playing a bunch of other games? What will bring me more enjoyment? I still love hotkey-based combat, but I think one of the issues that I'm finding myself with when it comes to a lot of these modern MMORPGs, the focus is just too narrow for me. Like, you come across a period of time where you play enough MMO dungeons to where they all just end up starting to feel the same. And I may enjoy them for a period of time, but they will get stale and old eventually. And I think it's one of the reasons I still stick around with Final Fantasy XIV, is because it is designed with this idea of, hey, we have this content update, here's a bunch of content, go have fun with it. We're not going to ask you to grind a whole bunch if your character's already max level. It's not all that much investment you have to make. If you want to do high-end content, it's there. If you want to do glamour, you can do that. If you want to replay some of the story stuff, you can do that. Here's a bunch of quests. And funnily enough, the content cycle, cadence at least, mirrors gacha games in a lot of ways, where it's like, hey, here's a whole bunch of stuff to keep you occupied for about 2 months. Talk to you again then. So you have this period of time where you have all this much content to do. Borderline feels overwhelming, but you make your way through it, you get to the other side, and you're like, okay, not much left that I really want to do. I'm gonna go do other stuff till the cycle repeats. I think this is also the design of modern World of Warcraft, or at least they're trying to go in that direction. When it comes to things like Dragonflight and the War Within, remove a lot of the chores and just do a big content drop. People can go enjoy the content, leave, come back when it's time for more content. I do like those little events that World of Warcraft does from time to time. Things like Plunderstorm or things like Mists of Pandaria Remix. I actually came back to the game for Mists of Pandaria Remix because I'm like, oh, this is such a cool idea. This is such a unique idea for an MMO. I really want to try this. I loved Mists of Pandaria. I came in, played from time to time. I enjoyed my time with it. Played for about a month. Blizzard doing dumb Blizzard decisions where they grasped defeat from the jaws of victory happened, if you remember Mists of Pandaria Remix. I think MMOs have more competition, for me at least, when it comes to the things I liked from them to begin with. There's other games that I've probably always existed, but now I'm actually playing, that offer me similar things that I would want out of an MMO, but in games that don't ask me to have a schedule or be like, hey, pay for the expansion, then pay monthly monthly, then also we have an in-game shop, right? Like, say what you will about the greed of gacha games, because it absolutely is there. You can just play those games for free if you want. Or at least the big ones like Honkai Star Rail and Wuthering Waves. Or games like Zenless Zone Zero. And if I want games with incremental progression, I have games like Path of Exile that exist. Again, MMOs are very pricey games that require a lot of time and commitment, and when there's so many good games out there that offer me similar experiences to what I would want out of them at more affordable price points and entry points that don't require so much investment, that don't make me feel as if I'm perpetually behind everyone. But yeah, I just want to get that off my chest because I love MMOs at the end of the day, but I have been finding my interest in them to be waning over these last few years. And I find my attention gravitating towards other games and other styles. And I think it's for these reasons. So with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.